the winter of 1944, and the war in Europe had reached its bitter climax. Across the icy fields of France and the shattered towns of Germany, prisoners of war were being taken in the thousands. American troops were tired, hardened by years of fighting, but among them still burned a strange spark of humanity, a desire to show mercy even to their enemies. Among those captured in the chaotic weeks after the fall of Aachen were several German medical units, including nurses who had served near the front lines. They were young, worn, and frightened, uncertain of what awaited them in American hands. When trucks carrying German prisoners rolled into a temporary holding camp in western France, one of those nurses, her uniform torn and face streaked with dirt, looked out from behind the barbed wire with quiet disbelief. She had expected hatred, punishment, maybe even humiliation. Instead, she found something entirely different. The American camp, though simple and hastily built, was surprisingly humane. POWs were given warm meals, medical care, and blankets. The men in charge had orders, strict ones, that no prisoner was to be mistreated. But one officer in particular stood out from the rest. His name was Brigadier General Robert Daniels, a man known for his discipline and fairness. He had commanded thousands of men in battle, seen death up close, and had no illusions about the enemy. Yet, when he first walked through that POW camp in the winter mist, something caught his eye. A quiet figure tending to an injured soldier inside the women's barracks. She was called Anna Weber, a field nurse from Hamburg, barely 26 years old. She had joined the Wehrmacht Medical Corps, not out of ideology, but necessity, helping wounded soldiers and civilians alike, as bombs tore her city apart. Her hands trembled as she worked, but her calm voice steadied those around her. When the general saw her for the first time, she was wrapping a bandage around another nurse's arm. Her hair was tied back, her uniform stained with mud, and yet her composure was unlike anything he had seen in a POW camp. She looked up for just a moment, and their eyes met. That moment passed quickly, and neither said a word. But in the days that followed, fate seemed determined to bring them together again. General Daniels was responsible for overseeing the camp's operations and ensuring that all prisoners were treated under the Geneva Convention. He often visited the infirmary to check on conditions. Each time, he saw Anna quietly tending to the sick, German prisoners and occasionally wounded Allied soldiers alike. Her professionalism and quiet strength caught his attention. She never complained, never pleaded for release, and treated even her guards with courtesy. Soon, their brief exchanges, a few polite words about medicine, supplies, or weather, became the highlight of his inspections. Over time, the conversations grew longer. He learned she had lost her brother on the Eastern Front, that she once dreamed of becoming a teacher, and that she had seen things during the war she would never forget. One evening, as the general walked past the wire fences during sunset, he saw her sitting near the edge of the enclosure, sketching something on a scrap of paper. When he asked what she was drawing, she smiled faintly and said, "A tree from home. There are no trees like that here." That simple answer lingered in his mind for days. Despite the regulations, Daniels found excuses to check on the infirmary more often. The guards noticed, but said nothing. After all, he was the general, and though he never crossed a line, rumors began to spread among the prisoners and soldiers alike. By spring 1945, as Germany's surrender drew near, the camp had become more stable. Many prisoners were assigned light duties, farming, building, or working in nearby villages. The women, including Anna, were moved to a more permanent camp in southern France. When General Daniels visited the new site months later, Anna was there, thinner, paler, but still carrying herself with quiet dignity. She thanked him for ensuring the POW nurses received better living conditions. He told her it was simply his duty, but deep down he knew it was more than that. The war ended, and Germany lay in ruins. Repatriation began. Most POWs were being sent home, except some like Anna, who volunteered to stay longer to assist with post-war medical work in the camps. Daniels admired her decision. She said she could not return yet, not when so many still needed help. It was during this period that their bond deepened. They shared coffee in the command tent, discussed philosophy, poetry, and what the world might look like after the chaos. For the first time, both began to feel that rare emotion no soldier expects in wartime: peace. Then came the moment neither could avoid. Daniels was ordered back to Washington. His tour in Europe was over. On his final day at the camp, he went to see Anna one last time. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in gold and red. She stood by the fence, holding a small wooden carving, a simple cross made from scrap wood. She handed it to him and said, "To remember that mercy is stronger than war." H wanted to speak, to say something more, but words failed. They shook hands through the wire, and that was the last he saw of her. Or so he thought. Months passed. The general returned home to Texas, carrying medals, memories, and one wooden cross. Yet, even among all the honors and ceremonies, his mind wandered back to the camp, to the quiet nurse behind the wire. Then, one day in late 1946, a letter arrived. It was from the Red Cross, requesting his assistance with a group of displaced persons, including former POW nurses seeking sponsorship to work in America. Among the listed names was one he could never forget: Anna Weber. Didn't hesitate. Within weeks, arrangements were made for her to travel to the United States as part of a humanitarian program. When she stepped off the transport ship in New York, she was still the same, composed, graceful, and carrying nothing but a small suitcase. Daniels was waiting. The moment their eyes met again, it was as if no time had passed at all. He helped her settle in a hospital in Virginia, where she began working as a nurse for war veterans. Her kindness and dedication made her well loved among the patients, many of them former soldiers who had once fought her countrymen. But for the general, seeing her every day soon became something far deeper. In 1947, against all convention and criticism, General Robert Daniels married Anna Weber in a small ceremony attended only by a handful of close friends. The newspapers soon found out, and the reaction was explosive. "American general marries former German prisoner," screamed the headlines. Some called it betrayal. Others saw it as a symbol of reconciliation. Congressmen raised questions, but Daniels stood firm. He told the press, "War ends when we stop hating. She was my enemy only because politics made it so. In truth, she is the bravest woman I have ever known." Anna rarely spoke to journalists, but when one reporter asked her how it felt to go from a camp to the home of an American general, she quietly said, "In war, I lost everything. In peace, I found one man who taught me that forgiveness can rebuild what hate destroys." Their life together was not easy. They faced whispers, social rejection, even threats. But slowly, time softened the outrage. Their story began to be seen as something extraordinary, not scandalous, but human. Years later, when asked by a historian about the war, Daniels said, "We won the war with strength, but I learned from her that victory means nothing without grace." Anna continued nursing until her final years, helping orphans and refugees long after the war's wounds had healed. When she passed away in 1973, Robert placed the same wooden cross she had given him at her grave. The words carved on her tombstone read, "Mercy is stronger than war." Their story would remain one of the most remarkable and least known human tales of World War II, a reminder that even behind barbed wire, hearts could find freedom. For many, it was hard to believe that a woman once branded the enemy could win the love of a man sworn to fight her kind. But perhaps that is what made their story timeless. Because love, like peace, begins the moment one soul chooses compassion over command.